Hello and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Nick Blumberg. Brandis Friedman has the evening off. Here's what we're looking at.
It's a good night for the people of the state of Illinois.
The Illinois House passes a bill boosting large developments, but is it enough to woo the Chicago Bears? Chicago has seen heavy rainfall so far this spring. We explore the impact flooding is having on the region and potential solutions. And the Bears are about to be on the clock. What's the team's biggest need heading into the NFL draft? Former Bear James Big Cat Williams breaks it down for us. First off tonight, the CTA gets ready to break ground on the long-awaited Red Line extension. The transit agency is planning a ceremonial groundbreaking tomorrow on the nearly $6 billion effort. 95th Street down to 130th Street. It'll have stops in between at 103rd Street, 111th, and Michigan Avenue near 116th. The project's fate had been uncertain after the Trump administration moved to freeze some $3 billion in funding for the extension and other efforts. Late last month, a federal judge ordered the U.S. Transportation Department to pay up. Chicago Public Schools leaders are offering details on the May 1st day of civic engagement. In a letter to families, CEO Macklin King assured parents that many teachers and staff are planning to join rallies, but network and central office a full day of instruction, although students may engage in demonstrations at their schools or at civic actions elsewhere, with a large afternoon rally planned in Union Park. King also said the district approved a civics curriculum for classroom discussion. The letter comes amid pushback to the district's move, which came after pressure from the Chicago Teachers Union. A group of parents presented school board members a letter today questioning how CPS came to its decision. We've got more details on our website. Cook County celebrates the 60th anniversary of Stroger Hospital's trauma unit. Elected officials, staff, and former patients stressed the importance of the public hospital's specialized care at an event today. Leaders touted that American College of Surgeons, and patients thanked medical staff for providing care to everyone who needs it.
I want to inform you all that trauma recovery isn't just about fixing broken bones, but it's about mending a spirit. Those were some really dark days in the ICU bed. But every time I felt like giving up, someone in scrubs was there to remind me that I had a future worth fighting for.
Up next, a bill that could keep the Chicago Bears in Illinois. We explain.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Alexandra and John Nichols family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
An effort to keep the Bears on this side of the state line is moving forward. The Illinois House yesterday passed a so-called mega projects bill by a vote of 78 to 32. The economic development measure would apply to a potential new Bears stadium in Arlington Heights, though the team says it's still looking for more changes. Joining us now from Springfield is Brendan Moore, State House reporter with Capital News Illinois. Is different from a measure that we saw back in February. What are the key provisions that folks should know?
Yeah, so while the bill that passed in February was a mega project bill, this one is a broader economic development bill that has a mega project component to it. So I would say the biggest difference in terms of the mega project aspect is there's a property tax relief provision in there. That means that half the pilot payment would go to property tax relief, both in surrounding taxing districts and to a statewide fund. But then there are also a lot of provisions in there for other economic development measures, such as rail yards, which can be used in Chicago for perhaps the One Central development by Soldier Field, or perhaps in the South Loop for a White Sox stadium. And there's some star bond language in there.
Yeah, and that pilot payment for folks who aren't familiar with that, outline for us how that would offer something like the Bears several decades of certainty on how much they'd be paying.
Yeah, so basically this payment in lieu of taxes is what pilot stands for. works with the local taxing bodies, in this case in Arlington Heights, and it would give them some certainty on what they're going to be paying instead of kind of the every year you're kind of at the whim of the assessor, kind of knowing what your payment is going to be. So it kind of gives them that certainty that they say is necessary to build in Arlington Heights and to not go to Indiana.
Yeah, you mentioned, some of what the Bears are looking for. In a statement, they said they welcome the progress, but they're looking for additional amendments. Do we have any sense of what else the team is asking for here?
Yeah, they didn't specify in that statement, but if you read between the lines, I think they're going to want a change to that property tax provision, because if you're putting 50% of the pilot payment towards property tax relief, that is money that's not going to go necessarily to the schools or to the municipalities or the other taxing districts. So the worry would be is that they're going to ask for perhaps double what they would have originally asked for, because they want to get the money for the services that they provide, and not necessarily have it siphoned away for property tax relief. So I think that is something that is probably going to be looked at. That was language that was added in the House, was not negotiated with the governor or with the Senate. So I think that is something that's probably going to be revisited.
We've got just about 30 seconds left, but this has passed the House. Do we have any sense of what folks in the state Senate or Governor Pritzker think of this measure?
Yeah, so they were very, the governor's office and the top negotiator in the Senate were both, I would say, measured in their reaction to this bill passing. But it seemed pretty clear that there were going to be some changes coming, that while kind of Governor Pritzker said last week they had kind of the scaffolding of a deal in place. I think that's still true. I mean, you still have the pilot concept, but some of the details got changed and that weren't really negotiated with either the governor or with the Senate. And so I think that when the Senate comes back, there are going to be some discussions about what can pass there, what's feasible in the House, and try to get some agreed language. And with the Bears too, try to get some agreed language on something that can pass both houses, get Governor Pritzker's signature, and something that the Bears would find acceptable in order to put some shovels in the ground in Arlington Heights.
All right, we know you'll be keeping an eye on whatever the changes are. Brendan Moore, thanks so much for joining us.
Always a pleasure, Nick.
And you can read Brendan Moore's full story on our website. It's all at wttw.com/news. Flooding has always been a threat during Chicago's warmer months, but that threat is more and more present in the spring. Since March, multiple rounds of severe storms have caused not only flooding, but hail damage and even tornadoes. Joining us to discuss flooding, its impacts, and how we can manage them are Kevin Fitzpatrick, Assistant Director of Engineering at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District, and via Zoom, Ashish Sharma, the Climate and Urban Sustainability Lead at the University of Illinois Discovery Partners Institute. Thank you both for being here to talk about this with us. Ashish Sharma, if I could start with you, please. How is climate change affecting the threat of severe weather here in Chicago?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I think it's a good question. If you look at climate change impacts, we are seeing over the Midwest, there is a wet pattern above normal precipitation, and the region is stuck into a storm track corridors. So basically, the atmosphere is a lot more warmer than normal. It's building up a lot of moisture, and then moisture is turning into a lot of rainfall because of higher instability. And leading to a lot of thunderstorms and tornadoes as well. And if you think about this, this has become a classic recipe for severe weather, and right now it's just happening a little bit more often.
Yeah, certainly quite frequent this spring. Kevin Fitzpatrick, the MWRD plays a key role here. For folks who aren't familiar, what infrastructure does it manage to help contain floodwater?
So most people don't realize we are an independent government agency. We serve the city of Chicago and 128 suburbs. And we have a stormwater management authority that we gained in 2004 as a regional stormwater district for all of Cook County. And some of the infrastructure we have are the tunnel and reservoir plan, or deep tunnel as most people know it. We also have over 35 stormwater reservoirs that help prevent overbank flooding from exacerbating, from, I guess, leaving the banks of rivers and working its way into homes and streets. And then we do stormwater management partnership projects with several different partners around the county to put in things like green infrastructure, conveyance projects, stormwater conveyance, storage, underground storage projects. So we have several different, we have a very diverse array of projects.
And, you know, when heavy rains are in the forecast, what sorts of things does MWRD do to prepare for that?
Well, one of the things we did about over 100 years ago now, we reversed the flow of the Chicago and Calumet rivers. I think most people know about that project, and Chicago was kind of famous for that. But as part of that project, we created 76 miles of man-made waterways, which we have the ability to somewhat control the level of. So in advance of a storm, we can let more water out of those canals downstream and create about 5 billion gallons worth of storage in the canals so that when it does rain, a lot of that water can be absorbed within the canal itself. And of course, as that level does continue to rise during a storm, we have the ability to release some of it to Lake Michigan if the lake level is low enough.
Ashish Sharma, you know, we sometimes call floods 50-year floods or 100-year floods. I mean, what exactly, you know, do those phrases mean? You know, is that meaning changing as the climate does?
Yeah, I think those are return intervals. So a flood which happens for a specific height, then generally the return interval is 100-year, 50-year, 500-year, and the 1,000-year. But what's happening these days is a 100-year storm or the flood impacts that we are seeing is not a 100-year flood. It has become 10 to 20-year event. So it is happening a lot more frequent and happening multiple times of the year, and more so especially in the Midwest right now.
And you've worked on a project to help forecast weather sort of on the individual neighborhood level. How do you hope folks can use that tool?
Yeah, definitely. So we run operational weather forecasting for the whole state of Illinois at 1 kilometer resolution, and we forecast weather for the next 48 hours. At the same time, the forecasting provides rainfall, but rainfall doesn't mean flood because it doesn't always flood where it rains. So we run after weather forecasting. If we see there is substantial amount of rainfall happening, then we run flood forecasting model, and those are GPU-based model, a little bit untraditional. Then a traditional model, which would take 17, 18 hours to run a flood model, we run in 2.5 hours. And we collaborated with MWRD on this, and we published a manuscript recently, and we are very proud of the work to provide much more nuanced and high resolution flood forecasting for the region. And we can go up to a few feet of resolution and provide flood depths as well as flood spread.
That's interesting work. You know, Kevin Fitzpatrick, some of the sewer systems that feed into MWRD projects, they can be quite old. What sorts of challenges does that present?
Yeah, it's a huge challenge. So I mentioned earlier the tunnel and reservoir plan. It's a project I've spent a lot of my career on, and it's really this amazing engineering project. It's got 110 miles of tunnels underneath basically every waterway in the Chicagoland area, or most of them. And it captures flow from local sewers. So combined sewers that have both domestic wastewater and rainwater previously would discharge to the waterway and pollute the waterway, and then the waterways would back up and flood people's homes. Now it can drop down into the deep tunnel at over 400 locations. And when I say deep tunnel, it's 300 feet below ground. The longest one stretches from Wilmette, comes under the North Shore Channel through downtown and out to the southwest suburb, and it discharges into the McCook Reservoir, which we saw earlier on the show. It's an enormous quarry that has been repurposed into this stormwater reservoir. So during a storm, we can capture up to 11 billion gallons of water in the TARP system, and then we hold it until after the storm and then pump it back to one of our treatment plants and clean it before returning it to the environment. But the problem we're seeing today with climate change and some of these more intense storms is that the water can't even make its way through the local sewers to the deep tunnel system, so it can back up within the neighborhood. So now we're trying to focus on how to keep water where it falls through things like green infrastructure or little local storage projects.
Yeah, Ashish Sharma, you know, what does some of that look like to have climate resilient infrastructure in place?
Yeah, I think Kevin put up a really great point that the first step for us is when it rains, how can we contain and slow down the water or absorb the water where it rains? And then think about where it moves and then see, okay, how can we manage at that stage? So first is mitigation as we think about it. So green infrastructure, permeable pavements, green roofs, anything that can really slow down the water flow, absorb it, retain it, infiltrate it. And then we can think of how the water can move through the pipe network system that we have and go use the top facility and so on. And then also if we are not able to contain it, then it becomes combined sewage outflows and goes into the rivers and streams. So I think there are solutions of green infrastructure. Maybe we should also think about updating standards and retrofitting houses and more public awareness of using less water when the storms are intense, less laundry, less washing utensils and so on, and be conservative while you're using water.
Yeah, some of it is, you know, the infrastructure, some of it is the mindset, certainly. You know, Kevin, with the sort of the waterways, the tunnels, the reservoirs all connected, how do you try to make sure that, you know, a failure at one point doesn't cause problems, you know, across the whole system?
Yeah, well, we believe in a lot of redundancy in our system. So the deep tunnel, for example, where it's pumped out, we make sure we have totally separate pump stations at a couple different locations, so that if something catastrophic happens at a pump station, we're still able to pump it out with another pump station. And other than that, we have interconnected systems where we can help relieve one area if another area has a problem.
So it's not, yeah, all relying on one point. We've got just about 30 seconds left. We mentioned some of the challenges of age, but, you know, just working in an urban environment like Chicago, what sorts of challenges does that present?
It's very difficult. It's highly, you know, dense area. There's not a lot of room to put in a new reservoir, so we're having to get creative. One great example is we partnered with the City of Chicago, Department of Water Management and Public Schools to transform 34 asphalt parking lots that were kind of in disrepair at 34 different schools and turn them into beautiful play yards for the kids that they could do outdoor learning and classrooms and stuff like that. But the beauty is they now are permeable and we can soak water into them and store it underneath them, and we can capture up to 6.5 million gallons every time it rains. So we got to get creative and think of projects like that.
Yeah, a very interesting approach there. All right, that's all the time we have for this evening. Kevin Fitzpatrick, Ashish Sharma, thank you both for your time.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you for having me.
Up next, breaking down what the Bears might do in the NFL Draft. In just over an hour, the 2026 NFL Draft is set to get underway in Pittsburgh. With 7 picks, key roster losses, and a pivotal year ahead for quarterback Caleb Williams, how will the Chicago Bears try to shape the future of the franchise? Joining us with his thoughts on that is James Big Cat Williams, former Chicago Bears offensive lineman. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Good to see you too.
So the Bears have 7 picks. They've got 4 of them in the first 3 rounds. On paper, sounds pretty solid, but you know, given some of the holes in the roster, do you think that's enough to make meaningful improvements?
Oh, you have to. You have to. You have, like you said, 4 picks in the top 100, and you need those picks to be productive. You need to be able to figure out guys that are going to work well in your system, whether it be offensively or defensively, and they're going to produce for you. They might not be starters right off the bat. They might come in, play special teams before they move on, but they need to be part of the rotation. So you've got to find those guys.
Yeah. So, you know, the Bears traded wide receiver DJ Moore. They lost a number of key defensive players in this offseason. Do you think they should be drafting for need something like offensive line or edge rusher, or should they just be going for the best guy available?
Well, I think when you're picking at 25, you're trying to find the best fit for your organization, for your team. Whether it's an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman, you have to find somebody that can come in and be productive. You can't just you're not going to bring in someone at that 25 pick to just sit on the bench and learn. So you want somebody that's going to help you out along the way and progress as they go along. So that's what they're looking for. There are a lot of holes that you need to fill, so we're going to see what they do.
Yeah, and I want to come back to some of that. First round, though, dropping from 10 minutes to 8 minutes for each team to make their pick. Do you think that's going to have an impact on teams?
I don't know. I really don't know. This is going to be a very interesting process because, you know, that 2 minutes could make a difference. You're talking about teams trying to trade up, teams trying to trade back, trying to work with 2 or 3 different teams at the same time. And now you have a shorter period of time where you have to figure that out. Sitting at home watching it on the sofa, yeah, it'll be great going down to 8 minutes. You know, 2 less minutes I got to watch people just volley around on TV. So, you know, it'll be interesting for the people in those war rooms.
Yeah, I'm always impressed by the folks who are there doing the broadcast. Yeah. There's a lot of vamping going on.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is.
So the NFL announced the Bears are not going to receive compensatory draft picks after the departure of the former assistant GM Ian Cunningham, who went to the Atlanta Falcons. Even though the formula for this kind of a situation seems to indicate they should have. What do you make of that?
Yeah, like you said, the formula says that they should have gotten a pick. For some odd reason, the NFL has voted against it or denied them. Chicago says that's what it should be. Atlanta has said that's what it should be. Don't understand why the NFL won't give up that pick.
Interesting. Okay. Well, we've got Caleb Williams heading into his 3rd year. How would you evaluate his development so far?
It's getting better.
Yeah.
You know, I'm anxious to see another year under Ben Johnson to see what they are able to put together. The things that he is able to calm down in Caleb, you know, some of the things you don't want him to calm down because that's what makes him great. But there are certain platforms, certain schedules that Ben is going to want him to stay on schedule with. And once he is able to do that, I think that'll make him an all-around better player.
Yeah, and having, you know, Ben Johnson now in his 2nd season, Caleb in his 3rd, you know, maybe they've sort of settled into the roles a little more and to their relationship.
Well, I think Ben told him from Jump Street, you know, you did well last year, but now it's going to get even a little harder because I'm going to ask more out of you. I'm going to want you to do more things. I'm going to want you to be more productive from Jump Street than having to ad-lib.
Yeah, quite a turnaround that Johnson helped engineer last year. All right, so talking about the offensive line, great last year, but center Drew Dahlman retired at 27. Ozzie Trapillo is expected to miss a lot of the season with a knee injury. How important is it to shore up that O-line?
I think it's important. You have Braxton Jones, who's going to be coming back, and from all indications, everybody's talking about he looks healthy, he looks smaller, you know, more fit now. But you won't know anything until you put the pads on, until you get him lined up at left tackle, until you figure out how Bradbury's going to work at center. You still have questions. You know, we came into last season with questions just as far as how well would they gel. And I think they did a good job of gelling, and I think Ben Johnson did a good job of putting them in situations where they could succeed. Now he has to do it all over again, depending on how everything works out.
Yeah, I mean, how about that? It was such a great run last year. Do you think fans should expect them to build on last season's success, or might we see a little backsliding?
That's a hard question to answer because you might see a little bit of backsliding, but you also might see them as a team play better, not have to come from behind in so many games, not have to use the last 2 minutes in the game to figure out exactly where this team is. So if they only may have 10 wins and it's a win less than last year, but they did it in good fashion, then I'm okay with that.
Yeah, we're almost out of time, but we talked a lot about the O-line, but what do you think the biggest need is on the defensive side of the ball?
I'm not sure. You need a safety. I think you need a corner. You definitely need an edge rusher. You need a defensive tackle. You have positions on that defensive side of the ball that you need to work on, that you need to try and get a little better.
And you've got a connection to Pittsburgh yourself.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm not there right now.
But exciting to see them get a little bit of the spotlight, get the shine from the NFL
Hopefully
draft.
the weather holds up and it'll be beautiful down there. They deserve it. Pittsburgh deserves it.
All right, it's going to be very interesting to see what the Bears do. James Big Cat Williams, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And that's our show for this Thursday night. Don't forget, you can stream Chicago Tonight on our WTTW YouTube channel every evening and catch up on any programs you may have missed. Join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 7 for the Week in Review. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Nick Blumberg. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm with more than 40 years of experience in medical malpractice.